So a good tree can only produce good fruits, and a bad tree can only produce bad fruits. So this is talking like when you see a person that is always angry, they're always like sad on life, they're hating on everybody, that is somebody that is living, they're a bad tree, they're producing bad fruits. And then when it's somebody that's living for the Spirit, it's a good tree producing good fruits. So who knows the fruits of the Spirit? You ever heard of it? You ever heard of it? So it's like joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, self-control. I probably missed one in there. What? Gentleness. Yeah, I missed one. I'm sorry. I'm not that good yet. But so that's like some of the things that you're going to see coming through that. And I want to kind of call us to a deeper understanding of living through the Spirit. So how many of you in here have heard of the concept of tithing? Yeah? Tithing is giving your first 10% to God. It's like whenever you make $100, you give $10 to God. And so it's like giving your resources, your money to God, back to God, that first 10%. And then, who's heard of Dick Brogden from Live Dead? Yeah? He's a missionary he's been all over. He runs a missionary program. Jacob Wilcox, a lot of you guys know him. He's going to be a missionary through Live Dead. He's been training for it. And Dick Brogden has talked about this concept of tithing your time as well. So there's 24 hours in a day. You take 10% of that, and it's about 2.5 hours. So what Dick Brogden is saying, you're taking 2.5 hours out of your day, every single day that you are going to be working for God, you're going to be spending time with God, communing with God, and a part of that is having a relationship with God. And a lot of the times, we think a relationship with God is, I'm going to pray to God, I'm going to worship God, but a relationship with God is no different than a relationship with one of your friends, with one of your spouses. Pastor Luke in the back, he's a good friend of mine. And what do you think my relationship with Pastor Luke would look like if the only time I ever talked to him was right before I went to bed at night, and I would just text him a bunch of stuff like, oh yeah, like my day kind of sucked, like my grandma's not doing too well, my friend, like they're kind of going through something, just like help them, be with them, and like forgive me of my sins. All right, bye Luke. And I don't give him any chance to talk back to me. What do you think that relationship would look like? Do you think Luke would be very happy with me as a friend? You think Luke would even be my friend if I was like that? He's saying no. No. So why should we treat our relationship with God any different? Why do we not let God speak back to us? God wants to speak to you just as much as he wants you to speak to him. And another thing that I wanted to talk about was the power of prayer. How many of you in here believe in the power of prayer? Come on, let's hear it if you believe in the power of prayer. Yeah! Our El Salvador team, we just saw healings taking place. So now let me ask you this question. How many of you genuinely pray every single day as if you believe in the power of prayer? I don't hear anything. I'm in that list. I don't always pray as if I genuinely believe in the power of prayer. I feel like if I believed in the power of prayer and I wanted to like build my life off of that, every single day, every single thing that I did while I'm walking around, I see somebody in crutches, I see somebody in a wheelchair, I'm going to stop what I'm doing and I'm going to pray for them. But we don't do that. Why don't we do that? I want to call us to a higher standard. If you really believe in the power of prayer, pray like it. Pray every single day. We just talked about in our small groups. Isaac Smith brought it up. Smith Wigglesworth, I think it said. He said, rarely do I pray more than 20 minutes, but rarely do I go more than 20 minutes without praying. If you believe in the power of prayer, you are going to be praying constantly. And if you don't believe in the power of prayer, I want to do a little plug for my El Salvador team. Just last week, we were there in El Salvador on a missions trip, and I'll tell two different stories. One, there was this girl in a wheelchair that came to one of the programs we were at, and this is insane. I still get goosebumps just thinking about this. There was this girl that came up in a wheelchair, and she had different sized feet. She had a lot of trouble walking. She was pretty much told by the doctors, like, hey, you are going to be in this wheelchair for your entire life. And she came to our program, and a bunch of the kids there started praying for her. Tried to stand her up a couple different times, just kept praying, kept persisting in their prayers. And next thing you know, she literally jumps out of her wheelchair and starts running around. Yeah, come on. That's awesome. That is the power of prayer. God is still active today, just like he was in the Old Testament. It wasn't just Jesus that did healings. We can still have healings today. There was another guy that came into church in crutches. He was limping around in crutches, and he told us that 8 months earlier he had been in a motorbike accident, and he had shattered his leg. He had multiple surgeries from this point, and none of them really had helped him. He was still in pain whenever he tried to walk, so everywhere he went in crutches. And we started praying for him, and Eddie, some of you guys know Eddie, he started praying for him, had his hand on this guy's leg, and he said he started feeling things moving around inside of his leg. So he stood him up and said, try and walk. And he started walking, and this man just started crying because he's like, I'm walking right now with no pain for the first time in months. Almost a year he was walking with no pain. God is still active today. So another concept that I want to bring up to you guys tonight is intercessory prayer. And intercessory prayer is defined as pleading to God on behalf of oneself or on behalf of someone else. Now, that's kind of what we were doing in El Salvador, but how often have you had somebody in your life tell you, hey, I'm really going through something, I've been down recently, maybe they've been injured, they broke a bone, they twisted an ankle, and you're like, oh, dude, that sucks, I'll be praying for you. And you go about your day, and maybe at the end of the night, you'll send up a quick little prayer like, hey, God, just heal them. They got something going on. They twisted their ankle. They broke their leg, something like that. How often do we do that? Or sometimes I've been guilty of it. I've said, hey, man, I'll pray for you, and gone about my day and not prayed for them because I completely spaced. I don't have that good of a memory. But does that sound like intercessory prayer to you? Pleading with God. I think pleading with God is more than just a three little word prayer of God help them, God heal them. And I'm not dogging on short prayers. Jesus said, don't babble on like the Pharisees. They just pray for lengths and lengths just to be seen, just to be heard. But praying once for something is not where we should stop. You should pray until you persist and see it. My man Jared here in the front, he had a coworker. He told me today that he no longer works with him, but this man, Jared, had been praying for him for almost 9 years. Almost 9 years he has been praying for him without ceasing. Props to Jared. That is a great example of intercessory prayer, where you want something to happen, so you will continue to pray and pray and pray and pray. And I doubt every single time you prayed it was for 20 minutes or anything like that. Even just God, my friend, I pray that you'd just touch him, you'd be softening his heart. Just something simple like that. Just continuing to pray for them. It's pleading with God for something more. Now I have one more Bible story for you guys. So we're going to change completely from Romans, and we're going to go to Mark chapter 5. And the beginning part of this story is a little bit long, so I'm just going to kind of paraphrase it. So there's this man that has been possessed by demons for years. It says that he's been living in the tombs. He's naked, and he's been cutting himself in the tombs. So there's a town nearby, and I guarantee you most, if not all of those people in that town had either heard about him, if not seen him personally. And it says that Jesus was sailing across the lake, and when Jesus landed, this man came up, and he came running to Jesus, and he just fell at his knees. Fell on his knees right in front of Jesus. And what I'm interested in is a few verses earlier when it says that this man had been bound by shackles and broken out of them. Like man had tried to bind him, they had shackled him up, chained him up, and nothing was able to hold him back. Like he would just break out of him and he'd go around terrorizing, doing whatever. And he comes running up to Jesus and just falls on his knees right at the feet of Jesus. So why did he bow? Is a question that kind of kept coming back to me. There are so many ways that people tried to chain this man up. There was no earthly power that was able to bind this man. But he came and he bowed willingly at the feet of Jesus. I think the answer for it is in James 2. There's not a verse for it, but in James 2, it says that even the demons believe in the power of Jesus, and they shudder at the thought of it. They shudder at the thought of Jesus because they know the power that he has. They know the power that he has already broken from Satan. So now I want to ask you this. We as humans, if somebody was to come up and put iron shackles on our hands and on our feet, I don't care how strong you are, you're not breaking out of that. Even Chad couldn't break out of that. He's a big dude. But you're not going to be able to break out of that. There are earthly powers that can hold you back, but why do we not bow before Jesus? Why are there times when we don't bow before Jesus? Even the demons bow. And let me tell you this. The demons and Satan, they are more powerful than just you. You alone cannot beat Satan. You alone cannot beat demons. You can only beat them with Jesus. That is the only way you can beat them. And he is so much stronger than them. So why is something that is so much more powerful than us bowing down to Jesus, but we don't? I want to get into this verse now. So we're going to be starting in verse 11, and this is right after Jesus had told the demons to leave this man. And in verse 11 it says, "A large herd of pigs was feeding on a nearby hillside. The demons begged Jesus, 'Send us among the pigs, allow us to go into them.' And he gave them permission, and the impure spirits came out and went into the pigs. The herd, about 2,000 in number, rushed down the steep bank into the lake and were drowned. Those tending the pigs ran off and reported this in the town and the countryside, and the people went out to see what had happened. When they came to Jesus, they saw the man who had been possessed by the legion of demons sitting there, dressed and in his right mind." A way that they had never seen this man before. It said he was butt naked running around cutting himself, and now there he is just sitting there dressed and in his right mind. Continuing in verse 15, it says, and they were afraid. Why would you be afraid of that? I don't know. I'm not going to dig into that tonight, but I thought that was just weird, kind of funny. And then in verse 16, those who had seen it told the people what had happened to the demon-possessed man and told them about the pigs as well. Then the people began to plead with Jesus to leave their region. Sorry, my voice is getting a little scratchy. Ooh. So, why do you think the people pled for Jesus to leave? And keep in mind, this is the same word we had just used for intercessory prayer, of day after day, like saying, like, God, please help this person. Please help this person. And like in the case of El Salvador, it was sometimes we'd be praying for people for 25, 30 minutes before they were healed, like pleading with God. So why were these people pleading for Jesus to leave them? I think the answer lies in verse 16. Blake, you can put that back up there. You got it? Okay. It says, those who had seen it told the people what had happened to the demon-possessed man. And this part is what I think it is. It says, and told them about the pigs as well. When you start following Jesus, it will cost you something. When you start following Jesus, it will cost you something. That is what it cost for the people in this instance. It cost the pigs. There were about 2,000 pigs that ran off of the cliff. Blake, that should be up there. Is it not? No? Okay. So, following Jesus is going to cost you something. And in some cases, it might be a relationship. It might be a boyfriend, a girlfriend. It might be some of your time, just like we were talking about with Dick Brogdon, talking about tithing your time. It might be just some of your resources. Maybe you haven't been tithing your resources. But following Jesus is going to cost you something. There are some people that went to El Salvador that are now called into missions. They are going to end up giving up their life here in America, in a first world country. A lot of people see it as one of the best countries, and maybe they'd be going to somewhere like a third world country where they don't have water, they don't have clean water, they don't have air conditioning, they don't have heat. It might be cold, might be hot, you never know. And following Jesus is going to cost you something, but you will gain everything through it. You will gain everything from following Jesus. You will gain that life through the Spirit that is going to lead to a life dedicated to God, consecrated to God. It will lead to you eventually going to heaven, which is described as perfect, sinless, shameless, better than anything you could even imagine. The description of heaven are like, it talks about streets of gold, jewels, and like some of the descriptions they just have to use like, what is that word? They can't even describe it because heaven is just something that is just so much better than anything here on earth. We couldn't even begin to imagine it. And the reality is, you're either going to end up going to heaven or you're going to end up going to hell. And if you don't follow Jesus here on earth, it might not cost you anything while you're here, but it's going to cost you eternity. It's going to cost you eternity. So, tonight, in a minute, we're just going to have some time to just focus in on God, maybe surrender some things, or start working on maybe some of the topics you've heard with intercessory prayer, or if you want to surrender to God just some of your time. We're going to have some time to do that, but first, I just want to have everybody just bow your heads, close your eyes. And we're going to have two groups. In the first group, you might not have been following Jesus. Maybe you come on Sunday mornings, Sunday nights, Wednesday nights. I don't know how often you come to church, but you might not have been following Jesus as much as you would have wanted to. And if that's you, I just want you to raise your hand, and I'll pray for you quickly. It may be for the first time that you want to dedicate your life to Jesus, and it may be for the 1,000th time. Yeah, I see your hands. You can put them down. I just want to say quickly that following Jesus is not a one-time decision of raising your hand. Following Jesus is an every single day decision. You have to wake up and you have to choose Jesus. There are going to be so many other things that are going to try and hold you back from him. And the only thing that can hold you back from Jesus is yourself. You are the only thing that is going to be able to hold yourself back. You may think that a relationship, maybe your boyfriend, your girlfriend is holding you back from Jesus. Who's holding you back from breaking up with them? Who's holding you back from breaking off a friendship? It's only you. The only thing that can hold you back from following Jesus is you. Lord, I just thank you for the people that have made a decision to follow you today, to have a relationship with you, Jesus. I pray that you'd help them to just seek after you daily and to listen from you, not just try and talk to you every single day, but also listen back from you, and that they would take something out of this, God, not from me, but from you, Jesus, that you would be speaking them tonight, just steps and things that they need to do to follow after you, God. And the second group is just going to be people that one of the things hit home for you tonight. Maybe it's intercessory prayer. Maybe it's the power of prayer. Maybe it's praying more often. Maybe it's just dedicating your life more to Jesus and building that relationship, giving God time to speak to you just as you speak to him. And if that's you, I just want you to raise your hand. I don't want to pray for you. Yeah. Jesus, I thank you for every single person in this room that just wants to continue to build their relationship with you, Lord. I pray that you would just speak to them daily, God. Give them little reminders throughout the day just to seek after you, God. I pray that intercessory prayer would become common in this youth group, God. That people would be healed every single week, that your power, your spirit would just be flowing into us and flowing out of us like never before. Pray that in Jesus' name. You guys can look up now. So we're going to have time spread out across this room. We have plenty of time before we dismiss, but just spread out away from any distractions and just take some time to either just surrender some things to Jesus or just look to him in this moment. Just start spending time with him. Allow him to speak to you. And if you're not going to be paying attention, not going to be doing anything, just don't be distracting to those around you.